Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and this is my attempt to get back into a little bit of my old Future Friday things. I have a science fiction setting, and this is just my opportunity uh, to talk about it, to describe it. This is a world building channel. It's kind of a world building live podcast of sorts, and I thought I would give some people an insight into what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, and you guys can kind of steal some ideas from it and or take part in it. Hey, yeah. I like the word twisting there. Hey, a member of the Shice Squads is going to talk about war and peace on Holy Terra. The today we are going to talk about Terra. So, for actually, let me share this out. For those who don't know, this is a transhumanist science fiction setting, and the solar system has been occupied by humanity. And from Mercury and orbiting around the sun all the way out into the uh, Pluto and Charon and the Kuiper Belt and the Oort cloud and all places in between. And for me, I feel like our own solar system is so interesting that it's often overlooked in science fiction. Usually it's earthbound, and we are just leaving Earth all the way to exploring Alpha Centauri and a wider intergalactic space with hyperspace and such, but uh, not much science fiction in terms of fiction is talked about in terms of leaving our own solar system. So one of my elevator pitches is that the aliens that humans eventually meet in space are ourselves, and so just thought I would just talk about that. But today we're going to talk about our third planet as we progress away from the sun, and that is Earth. But in this world, in this time period, it's not Earth; it's called Terra. And the reason is because, despite the fact that Terra, meaning earth, the ground, the soil itself, is kind of a misnomer because much of humanity doesn't really live on the physical surface of Earth. Uh, it's basically an aquatic planet. Most of the people live in the larger 70% of the world, and that's the oceans. They live in floating habitats. They live in coastal cities, so, aquatic realms, bubble cities, uh, all kinds of things, flotillas and sargosas, and all just very aquatic. And um, much of that is because, well, we kind of screwed up the Earth, and it wasn't one thing; it was many things. Too much war and famine and such, along with the fact that to escape a lot of the problems that humanity has created for themselves is the greatest mega structure to have been built by humanity ever, and it is an orbital ring around the Earth, not just space elevators, but an orbital ring. And that ring, if I can, let's find some examples here. Some pretty good examples. This is okay. I'm going to bring up a thumbnail from one of my favorite YouTubers, and that's Isaac Arthur, and of Isaac Arthur, Science and Futurism with Isaac Arthur, and this is his thumbnail for his YouTube channel, and this kind of describes what an orbital ring would look like. It would be very thin around the entire Earth. So, an orbital ring, as described uh, by its channel and by physics itself, is a metal structure. It's basically a bridge. Let's see if there's another one. Here we go. It's basically a bridge. It spins around the Earth, and um, the spinning is such that it is neither. It's both being pulled away from the Earth and pulled towards it, so that it never falls onto the Earth's surface and never gets pulled away like a. It doesn't revolve like a hula hoop. It's actually magnetic ring on the inside of it. And then attached to the ring are elevators, and those elevators come down to the ground. And so an elevator can be taken up to the ring. Humanity lives on the ring, and because the ring is wider than the entire Earth's circumference, you could actually just attach a starship to the outside of the ring, untether it, let it go, and it would actually fly faster, much like being on a what's the children's merry-go-round that gets spun faster and faster. The minute you jump off of it, you get flung fast and hard away. And so that's what a an orbital ring is like. And so because of the elevators in the orbital ring, it made going into space extremely cheap. And so guess what? People took took the easy way out, and they're just like, yeah, Earth sucks, so we're leaving. So many, while people who stayed live in the oceans, the other people decided to go into the air, and they've left. And so what was left on Earth? Well, the people left on the ground on Earth, earthly cities, due to dropping in population, due to war and destruction, famine, crime, disease, rampant nanotech. You name it, people. Yeah. Hey, Heathen. Hey, what's going on here? I really appreciate that. Yeah. Shai says a bridge spinning around the Earth, kind of like Snowpiercer, but totally different. Yes. Uh, Snowpiercer's a horribly appropriate way of thinking about it, but yes, it is a. Despite the thinness in comparison to Earth, the orbital ring has probably mm, less than double digits in billions of people who live on it. So yeah. Yeah, Shai says, just leave. The only thing that's right to do in the name of peace. Yeah. And so, as, as a matter of fact, I'm going to bring up something that might be slightly controversial to someone who's very popular on this channel and is actually a moderator here. One of the things about the orbital ring is that it is like the epitome of human development. It was the thing that everyone got together in humanity. It was a symbol of utopia in many ways, but it was also the key. And I like dichotomies like this. It was also the key to let humanity give basically the middle finger to everybody and go, screw you, I'm out. Right? It's the ultimate development of the construction of a thing that let everybody know we're all equal, we're all part of this community. And yet at the same time, it was the key to let everybody go, I don't even like you guys, I'm out. So for example, like myself and Deadman, who's a very popular channel, brilliant, always comes with the knowledge. Both of us, I can kind of guarantee it. Both of us are like opposite sides politically today. Like we don't, we there, there are some things I think we agree on a lot more than a little bit. But and I'm being a little facetious, but we don't agree politically at all. But we have discussions, and we are open enough to understand that both of us would probably who don't like what is going on in our world, in our whether it's our county, our state, our community, the wider continent of the United States, the rest of the world, and yet we could both agree, hey, let's both get on this space elevator, get into space, and we can go off on our own, and I'll see you later, right? So it's a weird thing of is this weird thing of everyone's agrees to disagree and work together to get the hell out of here. And so that's how the our solar system became populated very quickly in a very short amount of time. It was, you know what? I'm going to go off into the asteroid belt and join the asteroid families, or I'm going to go off to a moon of Saturn, and everyone's like, see you later, bye, and so on. That's how Mars became so populated. Or Mars is almost socially Earth 2.0. So what happened to the cities, the actual physical um, landscape of Earth? Well, storms and erosion and things. A lot of coastal cities became just inundated, flooded, destroyed between trash, tsunamis, erosion, melting of the ice caps. It's just it's horrible. There are some places that are like tropical and nice and sweet, but for the most part, it's just smashers and storms and things. And a lot of cities became vacated. People now had the ability. There were no the cities that are known as hubs of social activity. I'm looking at you, Los Angeles and Hollywood. I'm looking at New York City here in the States. Around the world, it would probably be locations like Singapore or Thailand or London or Paris or whatever. And a lot of these places started to become vacant. There was no reason to have to live in these overpriced um, hubs of criminality and social assassination and economic disparity. People were like, oh, with one ticket, I can leave? Yes. And then those who couldn't leave didn't have the money, or the ones who wanted to stay. More and more um, uh, developers were like, you know what? We've got cheap space. We can just move into the ocean. And oh, by the way, we can give it to you nearly for free, but all you owe us is your work and your time. You can pay it off with with your valuable time. So they ended up moving into the ocean, and then the ocean community started to expand. And because the ocean is technically international, a lot of these places recruited from around the world. In many ways, stealing from uh, the cruising industry method of recruiting from around the world. When I Heathen says, somewhat off topic, are there space pirates in your universe? It's nearly all space piratey. So the question is, it is a little bit off topic, but it makes sense. So in this type of space community, shooting lasers and missiles and high velocity projectiles at people is the last resort. Like 95% of all conflict is all space piracy, mainly because shooting down another starship is considered it's not just destructive, it's rude. You make out far better by stealing and dominating another space habitat, another starship, than you ever would by destroying it, simply because of the Kessler effect. So, uh, for those who don't know, the Earth is already suffering from the Kessler effect, and the Kessler effect is space debris. Kessler syndrome. Okay, so uh, let me share this tab instead. So Kessler syndrome is basically space debris that gets thrown around the Earth, or around an orbital um, gravitational body, and it just so happens Earth suffers from it the worst. Uh, this feared space junk cascade called Kessler syndrome may have already begun. So what ends up happening is, let's say you throw a satellite into space, and it's one object. So that object orbits around the Earth. Eventually, it runs out of power, but it's still up there. So every time you send up a satellite, it stays up there unless it gets pulled by gravity to either be flung away from Earth or fall into Earth's orbit. More often than not, it'll fall into Earth's orbit. Problem is, you have to track it where it goes. Even if it burns up, it's still in the way if you want to leave Earth to, in a spaceship to go out in space. But here's one problem: that satellite can become debris. So it hits something else. And much like the old game Asteroids, a large object is better than 15 smaller objects. So if one satellite hits another satellite and it shatters it, now you have in space dozens, hundreds, thousands of small particles all flowing at what, like 18,000 miles an hour. It's some crazy number, and it's still floating around. And mind you, moving at fast speeds or staying still, it's just as dangerous. Either you're moving fast into a stationary, you know, somewhat relatively stationary object, or you're not moving and something else is moving at hypervelocity speeds and impacts you. And then both are happening at the same time. So the Kessler syndrome is a phenomenon in which the amount of junk in orbit around Earth reaches a point where it just creates more and more space debris, causing big problems for satellites, astronauts, and mission planners. Consider this scenario. The destruction of a dead spy satellite spawns a swarm of debris in Earth orbit, which wreaks ever increasing havoc as it zooms around our planet. And the cloud destroys a number of communication satellites, generating more and more debris with every violent collision. It takes out the iconic Hubble Space Telescope and a NASA space shuttle, killing several crew members aboard the winged vehicle. It then lines the International Space Station up in its crosshairs, destroying the $100 billion orbiting lab with a hail of fast flying shrapnel. Um, yeah, and so yeah, Kessler syndrome. So the orbital ring in the elevators was a way to get around that, with the orbital ring in this elevators protected. So what does that have to do with space attacks and piracy and such? Well, it's already expensive to build a spaceship and get it operational. And if I don't feel like putting the work in to actually make one myself, it's far better to steal another spaceship than blast it in space, creating uh, debris that both is dangerous to me and every single other person in the solar system forever and ever. Which is why they don't dump dead bodies into space, even though it's cool. Yeah. When I even says, "Oh, interesting, I love it." It's a very cold, pragmatic way of achieving some level of the appearance of peace. Yes, it is. It is very much an appearance of peace. Space elevators, orbital rings, leaving Earth, the Great Equalizer. The problem is that the problem we're going to have as humanity today is when we leave Earth, what kind of bullshit do we take with us when we leave? The problem was that with space elevators and the orbital ring, it was very easy for people to take their old ways with them. So the unity of Earth was build this ring so we can all get out of here. Then everyone scattered amongst the I want to say the stars, but it's our own solar system to make havens that were these inclusive, shielded echo chambers of their own way of life, and which basically exacerbated our separation from each other. So imagine living on a space habitat of 10,000, 100,000, 5 million people, but they kind of all inclusive. They very literally the shell of a habitat is the barrier, despite the fact of having instant communication. It became the physical barrier of the us versus them. And so, yes, space debris. The only possible outcome is to collide with it. Yes, over time. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Which is I'll explain what six shooters are, and there's a whole industry of trying to protect starships from going into different orbits. Earth has the problem. The moon has slight gravity, but it has a Kessler syndrome problem, and Mars, in my world, has a Kessler syndrome problem as well. Yeah, when Heathen says because if you shoot it, you just have to deal with smaller debris. Yeah, or you would have try to collect smaller space debris with magnets maybe, and that's exactly what there's a blue collar work that's just about having these very slow moving ships with shields around them, and other starships go behind the shields, both magnetized, electromagnetized, and physical shields to protect ships going into and out of atmospheres. So it's a whole big thing. Also, it's an excuse for gaming wise for players not to be able to just get in the Millennium Falcon and leave. Right? It's if you want to leave the planet, you can, but you might die if you don't get help. Which means there's always an issue of having a relationship with another entity to do a thing. He this goes on. So space piracy becomes about being super clever rather than pew pew. Absolutely. So now, mind you, do people get blown out of space? Absolutely. The problem is space is so empty that when it happens, other people know about it pretty regularly. So if someone's starship explodes, it's a thing that everyone knows about. Like Earth, today you can get online and find the tail number for a plane and find out where it is, how fast it's moving today. And in space, it's the same thing. Just about every stellar ship is monitored in some kind of way because every starship is a potential kinetic kill. machine for someone else. So if you live on Mars in a domed city, you want to know where every kinetic kill device is in the entire solar system, just in case it falls after you. And that's not just paranoia because of starships. That's paranoia because of asteroids, because asteroids are being constantly mapped, like the weather. So on Earth, there's weather systems, storms and heat and winds and tornadoes. But in space, it's about the solar winds and solar flares and asteroids and meteors and comets. And starships just happen to fall into that category, not by accident. It's just if you're going to monitor things above you, you're going to monitor those things. So in this space category, the most dangerous pirates don't kill you at all. They just try to disable your engines. Each side tries to disable the other to take them out. So, for example, the enforcers that stop space piracy don't want to blast them out of space. They want to disable them, and come back for them, or board each other's ships, take each other prisoner, shut things down, steal things, scavenge things, and get the hell out of there. So there are, and this is a gaming thing too. There are quite a large number of empty starships because the space pirates went in and stripped it the hell down, or scavengers came along after a space piracy and were like, we want to come in and steal stuff that were no part of the piracy, but they're just scavengers anyway, to get there very quickly, steal the materials, and get the hell out of there. So Shai says, DBJ, in order to leave Holy Terra, we're going to need to become space ghosts. Nobody can survive space sickness for long. Yeah, there's a little bit of that too. There's a little bit of space loneliness and things like that. Thank you there, one-eyed heathen. All right, so coming back to Earth, coming back to Earth, uh, humanity living in the oceans means that lots of between living in the oceans and between being able to leave Earth by going up into the orbital ring around Earth, a lot of our cultures have combined together. So there is no English any longer, American English, even though it's very popular. It's kind of a polyglot of various different languages, as would normally happen by people from around the world. And genetically, people have names and genetics and families that are. It's very easy today to have someone from Ireland and from Madagascar and from Chile and from Australia and Mongolia to be part of your immediate family, very easily. Like that's just a normal thing, both living in the oceans and living in the orbital ring. But there are two opposing but similar groups that live on the surface of Earth. One are survivors, people who just refuse to leave Earth, refuse to live in the oceans. We're humanity. Earth is our home. Everybody else is a fraud, and we're just going to live on Earth. And this is where you come across a little bit of the Mad Maxing of things. Empty cities, and the cities weren't destroyed necessarily. A lot of them were just forgotten. The population just dropped. I'm using the example of here in the United States. I'm using the example of Detroit as in Michigan, Flint, Michigan, as an example of what many of the major cities and rural cities from around the world look like. The population just dropped. There's no reason for people to flock to New York City or Los Angeles to find work or anything. They were just like, I'm going into the ocean, and I'm going to live on a floating Sargasso. I'm going to live on an iceberg city. I'm going to live in a submarine style vessel, whatever the case may be. But I'm gone, and those cities, the rich people there were like, well, I guess we're going to leave too. We've got enough money to leave, and you know, in this world, there's they're trillionaires, and also since there's trillions of people that live in the solar system, the trill are like they are the 1% of the 1%. These individuals have enough money to make the universe shape in their own image, and those people left. Shai says, Detroit, I'm from the next city over. Oh, really? Yeah, I'm close to. I'm in Columbus, Ohio, so I'm close. But yeah, even though we're rivals sports wise in Ohio and Michigan were kind of rivals and such like that. But there's a lot. We have a ton of uh, of of Michigan refugees that live in Columbus, Ohio, simply for jobs and lifestyle and things like that. Yeah. When I Heathen says, "Oh, an empty starship awaiting pirates' return would be a great horror dungeon." That's exactly why it exists. That was. This is my excuse for having um, empty starships. Why they exist? Some of them have planted their flag, and they're like, "We'll be back for more materials." Others are people who were left on empty starships who had to fend for themselves because the pirates. I mean, the pirates don't have to take crew on; they can just go in, steal your engines, and leave. And like, nope, see ya. We're not going to kill you, but somebody else will be by for you. Just leave your emergency beacon on or something like that. One Eye Heathen says, I have family in Detroit, so I'm rooting for that city. My hopes are not high. Now, granted, um, there are survivors on Earth, and like nomads, like Mad Max, they've got like the gas masks on, the the old rusted out, cloth wrapped guns on their back and scavenging, canned goods from empty storefronts. Yeah, oh, those people exist on the planet Earth, and they're just survivors. They're going to survive, nanotech swarms and acid rain and massive storms and rampant disease and mutated dogs and that kind of stuff. But then there's also a bunch of people who are reclamers. They want to support and save Earth, and they are going around scavenging because they want to bring Earth back, like a museum of sorts. And they're trying to protect great monuments, protect and find valuable things like old books and videos and things of that nature. And they want to protect those things. And lastly, there's even a third group, which is even more hyper focused, and they're trying to save Earth's cultures. They want to bring back the old languages, bring back the old ways we did things. And so they, despite humanity being kind of a conglomerate of different cultures, they're actually intent on separating the cultures to save what they are. And I'm stealing from, borrowing from kind of the indigenous peoples, Native Americans of the states, and how they are looked at and treated in many ways as a culture dying off, and yet it still exists. All of the Earth's cultures are like that in this future. So there are, and this is again for good or bad. There's no right or wrong. These are just individuals who are intent on saving India from the 18, what was India like in the 1800s? What was um, Thailand like in the 500 AD? What was, I don't know, Colombia like in the 1900s, right? And there are these all, and these historians of sorts like wheel and deal with each other by trading air quotes ancient artifacts from 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, languages, the ways of how things were made and done. How to, like, for example, how do you make Damascus steel? Well, these are the individuals that are trying to save that, and keep our great monuments from deteriorating from the harsh environment. So they are both historians and adventurers and explorers, but some people look at them as like throwbacks to an age that doesn't exist anymore. So uh, let's see. I mean, space sickness in the sense of you spend enough time in zero gravity, your body will atrophy and start to fall apart. And then there are cosmic rays. Yes, yes, that's a real thing in my world. So I am taking real physics and science, and then twisting it into a role playing game, a role playing setting. So, yep. Yeah. Yes, this Michigan, Ohio is so counterproductive. We are like sibling states. Yeah, we are. Although we've been fighting over Toledo, and not fighting to get it, but fighting to kick it over to the other side. Currently, you guys are winning. We own Toledo. Damn it! Oh, we hate that. Yeah, yeah. The rivalry. I get you. I know. I I hear you. Yeah, fighting with each other. But that's just a It's just a fun rivalry. I look at it that way. Does the one eye does the mutated dog die? Yeah. One eye heathen says, "Oh, the Reclaimer sounds cool." I Yes, am I mispronunciating something with the wrong emphasis on an improper syllable? I am correct. I am actually doing that. So they are not just reclaimers; they're reclaimers. They are, um, backpacks full of books and postcards and canned goods and things like that, as well as uh, other ancient artifacts and things. Like they're like warrior intellectuals would be the case. So yeah, yeah, Thailand in 1500 AD. Now there's something I never gave much thought about. Got to look it up in the wiki. Yeah, yeah. Debian says check out the Netflix series Ragnarok. It's set in modern times with Norse mythology. Exactly, and there are people who are living on my Earth. It's mine. Uh, sci-fi setting, and yes, there are people who are living who are actually living the physical way we used to live back in those days. And I I like intermediate social dynamics um, of society. So on one hand, someone could say that trying to save the various types of histories and cultures we have from around the world is a very noble thing to do. Saving Japanese history, saving um, the settling of the United States history, saving indigenous peoples' histories at the same time, saving Caribbean history and what that all that sounds cool, but at the same time, some people feel like, well, that's just separating us. That's just you're speaking in languages that don't bring us together. You are trying to hold on to the past, and so I like the idea of you're both being right and wrong. There is no right and wrong, and I like that gray. So yeah, when I Heathen says, "Are there any cults on Earth?" I imagine the historians could get very cult-like very quickly. Oh, hell's yes. Yeah, there are some who are like talking about Ragnarok and Viking and stuff. There are people who are literally living that way. There are people who feel that living the history is what keeps it going. And so, yes, there are that. I have not seen the Ragnarok series, but I need to. Yeah, one heathen says it's like the Georgia or the Atlanta thing. Both states are pretty, or and Georgia and Alabama thing. Both states are pretty terrible in many ways, but we fight. Yep. Yeah, Shai says, is Toledo a shithole or something? Last time I was there must have been in the 90s. It's somewhat considered like I hate to put it this way, but it's kind of considered a stepchild city. I think every known place has a place like that everyone else is like, I wish we didn't have that city where we nearby. I think some people kind of consider it that way. Now, I mean, I don't mean that physically. I'm just like, it's just a dumb thing that we think of. So um Earth, Terra itself, and the space elevators, people flocking to the space elevators to leave, some people coming back the other way. Yep, we are definitely Rust Belt cities. Unfortunately, Rust Belt cities. For those who are not in the United States, Rust Belt refers to there was a period of time where factory industry had made these places bloom, like the population just exploded. I want to dare say multiplied by 5 or 10, that drew people to very high paying um, industry making, high paying, low low skill jobs, meaning like you could very easily learn the job if you didn't have a skill to be learned how to do a thing. Much of that rust belting was processing of ore and steel, and the automobile industry, of course, in Detroit and such. Actually, here in Ohio, Cleveland, there was a Cleveland engine that was built here and such. But when that went away, Shai says the Rust Belt is the American equivalent of Rupat, I believe. Is that in Germany? Yeah, and yeah, the Rust Belt is just it's unfortunate, but a lot of people who moved here, who brought their families, moved from very long distances, made a lot of money. The next generation, those it dried up. Factories moved, And so that's why it's called rust, because the metal rusted away. There, those industries left. Me being from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, I lived very close to the ABE area, which was Allentown, Bethlehem, and Easton. And there's a song, "Living Here in Allentown." It talks about the downfall of Allentown, which was a Rust Belt city. It was high industry. A lot of coal industry was there as well, and it died out. And so, yeah. Oh, Shice goes on to say, yeah. Put this up here first. I'm butchering pronunciation. Ruppert is the big coal and steel region in Germany. Dusseldorf, Essen, Bochum, maybe. I know I'm mispronouncing. I apologize for that for the people who live there. But yeah, yeah. And rust belting, again, stealing a real life thing and transferring it into science fiction, is kind of what has happened to the earth itself. It's become a rust belt. The reason for people to live in these big cities has disappeared. And once we got over our social inclination to go to these places, like a Miami, like a New York City, like uh, a Dallas, Texas, like a Chicago, when the social implications of moving there, i.e., it's a cool place to be, it's the place where things happen. Instead, where things were happening was like in space. People said no reason to be here. And even today, like I could never move back to the neighborhood I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And lots of people are fleeing. Dead Man could speak a lot about this. I don't want to get you started there, Dead Man, but I think we both agree that economically, these places are horrible to live in, the big cities, because people are just priced out of being able to afford to live there. And now today, with digital nomading, the ability to do a job without having to live near where you do your work, and it's digital, people are going, wait a minute, why do I have to spend this much money to live in these places? I'm out. I am out. And there's a lot of despite the fact that we have this big problem with the border at Mexico, there's a lot of Americans going over the border into Mexico because it's a lot cheaper to live there. Yeah, Shai says, "Oh shit, you're from Philly." Now I'm starting to get what you meant about your school being dangerous. Yeah, yeah, it's pretty. In hindsight, I'm surprised I was as comfortable as I was in my Philly schools, because they're pretty. It's pretty horrible, and Philly's starting to get pretty horrible too, man. Young people. Yeah, when I Heathen says it's really sad what happened to those cities. We have a too many cities in the United States that our bigger cities get all the flash and glory. It's a lot of the smaller cities, the working class blue collar cities, that really suffers when technology and big business start shifting. Like it became to the point where it didn't matter how much economic influence a industry had in a state. A big business could just save money by moving it. So even the best workers could be out of a job, which is I think the end result of why today we have like the quiet quitting, the people that don't want to work and stuff. They've already seen examples of being loyal to companies. Like I've been working for 30 plus years at my job. I'm going to retire in less than 5 years, probably 4 years and 4 months from now, right? I will be retired, and I'll have 35 years in my job. People younger than me don't even know what that means. Like 35 years in one job, that's just an impossibility because they're not shown that anymore. Shai says, I went to the fourth worst school in Michigan. Oh no, Albion Public High was first to get closed down after the 2008 recession. Oh no. I was in a school that got shut down, but it was due to the leaky roof, mold, all that kind of stuff. It's called Lankenau. Yeah. Retirement in less than 5 years. May respect. Oh, don't. It not due to intelligence. It's due to being old. I'm a letter carrier, postman. I have a government job, and so government thing. So that's how that happened. It wasn't due to some brilliance or something on my part, but I love being a mailman, and I love the neighborhood I deliver to and stuff. I wouldn't be able to afford to live there, and I kind of don't look like the people who live there, if you know what I mean. But they love me, and I love them. So yeah, I've been embraced, and that's the part I appreciate because I take my job seriously. Uh, So anyway, um, lastly, we have people known as I'm gonna put this down into the I'm gonna spell this down into the chat, and they are called okay. You guys know what Lagrange points are, or Lagrange, Lagrange points, and Lagrange points are gravitationally stable locations around bodies. So Lagrange point, also called, I need to share this out a little bit. Here we go. Lagrange points, also called um, Lagrangian point or libration point in astronomy, a point in space at which a small body, under the gravitational influence of two large ones, will remain approximately at rest relative to them. In any two body system, there are five Lagrange points numbered L1 to L5. And right now we have a satellite. Well, I guess it is a satellite. We have a telescope out in space, JWST, and I was wondering why no one called it JDub. But anyway, JWST is a uh, looking out into space, and it is in a Lagrange point on the other side of our moon. So, but there are people who live in those regions outside of Earth, and yeah, yes. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, postman, you are one of the few government employees who does work that people actually want. You're right up there with firemen. Yes, we kind of work firemen, policemen, medical hours. So when I go to work, I never know what I'm getting off of work. I mean, I do know, but I don't know. So over before January, for like 2 years straight, we were basically half staffed. So we were carrying two routes a day. So I would go in, and when I get done my route at 3:30, 4:30 in the afternoon, I'm starting another route, working till like 8, 9 o'clock at night, and then doing that whole thing. We were working 75 to 80 hour weeks every week, Sundays included. It was crazy. And so you go into work. I don't know how many packages are going to be there. I don't know how much mail. I go into work. I never know when I'm getting off of work. And it's been 30 years that way. And most people don't realize that. And during COVID, it was necessary because I was delivering medications and people needed food. Like I deliver, I mean, people order cases of drink and all kinds of things. Amazon services, we take overflow from Amazon, even though they have their own vehicles and people and stuff. So, but there are people called the Legrand or Lagran, and it's just spelled Lagran, and that those individuals live in these orbital places. So outside of the ring, which is you know 6, 7, 8 billion people plus that live in the ring, that are all vying for who where they want to be, who they are, where they want to get jobs at, where they're leaving to. They're vying to get off of the orbital ring to go into other areas, and there's a kind of a bottleneck. So going up the space elevators that are numbered around the world on our equator, and then go up to the orbital ring, and then living in the orbital ring, it's very much a um, transit area. Everyone trying to discover who they are, where they want to go, getting their family to come with them. Some of them regretting it and wanting to go back down. Others scrambling to get off of Earth to leave, and that kind of thing. So it's very much a transit. Think of the busiest subways, trains, bus stations. It's very much like that, and then multiply that by 100 million, tens, thousands of millions, because it's in the billions of people who are actually living on this orbital ring and trying to get off of it. And whenever there's someone pokes their head up and there's an opportunity to get on the starship to get the hell out of there, here they're doing it. Others are downloading their brains to become mechanical. Some can't afford to leave as well. There's always the dream of going to a place, and then there's the reality of being in that place. And I'm borrowing a bit from the idea of people foreign to the states struggling to come here and then realizing what it's really like to live here. And the do I give up my old history and culture to be part of this new one, to escape? How do you hold on to it? Do you hold on to it violently at some point? But yeah. Deadman says the JWST is a TLL2 or Terra Luna Lagrangian 2 point. Yep, yep. And I think it only uses very minimal energy to stay in that point, but it's supposed to be rather stable. Uh, when I hear this, I imagine you've thought about what delivery services are like in your future. I thought it was going to be Mad Max. We drive around in postal trucks, all rusted out with like barbed wire around the outsides and flamethrowers and stuff. Oh man, Deadman says an orbital ring could have a population of billions of people if you had a space farming system. Absolutely, and how do I say this? Uh, there are people who might want to sabotage it. Um, even though it's the pride of humanity, people want to destroy it and sabotage it. And there's police forces, and then there's historians and architects and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, and there are elves. I'm actually pronouncing it incorrectly. There are elves in my world, so they don't have pointed ears, although some young people might do that. The L4 point, which is ahead of Earth, is the place where the rich live, and L5, which trails behind, is where the poorer people live. So, yeah, Road Warrior, postal trucks armed to the teeth. That's going to be so much fun. Hope that comes with through the next 4 years. I do. I kind of want to fight off the. I kind of want to have a gas mask. Wrapping a balaclava around my face, all dirty and stuff. And AK-47s, because of course in the future the only like real firearms to still survive are going to be AK-47s, all dirty, wrapped with like what's that camouflage mesh cloth and and electrical tape on the handle and all that kind of stuff. Oh hell yeah! Oh hell yeah! Oh, I'm eating dog food. Oh, best believe I'm eating dog food. So um so um so there's elfers, and then there are L5s that live in the Lagrange point L4 and L5. And so they're kind of called elves that live out in space. And even the people that are known as the Lagrange are people who they are like zero gravity individuals that are like have really embraced living in away from the orbital ring and Earth, and they live in these habitats in space. Yet at the same time, they are needed as like blue collar workers to keep space going. They repair space stations. They are basically like the carpenters, the plumbers, the electricians, the welders of space. They live out in these locations. Actually, the ones that live in the L5s and the fivers, the elves that live in five are the ones that are recruited in, and they're absolutely needed. They are the equivalent of scum from Eclipse Phase, Dead Man, and they're blue collar workers, and in a weird way, they also have a little challenge to the way they live because their families want their kids to move up. And I don't want you to be part of my family anymore. I want you to be better. And then there's the other part that's like, you're leaving us behind. You think you're better than us, kind of stuff. You think all you are is just grease monkeys and stuff. And so they live there. Now the richer people also debris that we purposefully need in space is usually left in the five region, the L5 region. So an empty starship, a habitat that was damaged, a you know something under construction, um, uh, asteroids, comets, or that is moved into orbit is often left in the L5 region, left behind. so it can be mined and used for, chunks of ice can be pulled off of it, off of a comet that was pulled into orbit or something like that. And then the people who are rich, they live ahead. They live in L4, and so the fours are always like that's where you have your gilded cages essentially. And so, anyway, I've taken too much of your time. I really only thought this would only be a half an hour, but this is Terra, and if and again, Terra and Earth isn't what it used to be. It's almost not Earth at all. It's people living in the oceans with sharks and octopi and squids as their friends, and learning how to hunt with schools of fish. Are there mer people? Of course. Are there ones who have gills and are live in use small little private craft to go into the deep parts of our ocean? Yes, there are. Are there aquatic cities like Atlantis, or like behind me, uh, um, Aquaman and Namor, or Namor, or whatever, however you want to call him, Namor the Submariner, Aquaman. So, are there cities like that? Yes, around the world. And so, again, players in this is in my setting, and I haven't found a rule set yet. I'm going to modify one. I might even use Cool Name Goes Here. I was looking at Karen's system. I have my own system. Anyway, I haven't decided what the system is yet, but and I've got like a, I don't know, 50,000 page Google Doc or something and growing related to this. But and it's always evolving, and I like to have things change and move and things like that. So, guys, thank you very much for this being part of the show. Also, uh, to let it be said, this is post-human and transhuman. So some people have actually left Earth digitally, not just biologically or in a mechanical body. Some of them have left digitally by downloading their brains into a zip drive, into a zipper, and then zip themselves into a jacket somewhere else. So that exists as well in this world. Now there is a big. Are you going to release this game world? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And these videos are going to be the template for the rest of it. So I plan on releasing it. I want to line it up with the release of no, you cannot buy it currently at all. I want to line it up, and I sorry, I am part of Critical Hit Publishing. So Alex and Rob and myself are part of Critical Hit Publishing. Alex does extremely excellent layout work. Right now, he's doing a ton of Call of Cthulhu uh, material. So I haven't bothered him very much, but he's the person that's going to lay it out. Rob's going to be my editor, and I need the game system needs to be simple enough, because the concepts I'm considering including are complicated, and it's also kind of dark too. It can be traumatic to rethink our own who we are and what we are. I think just as traumatically as adding in decadent things like violence against children or something like that, right? Like, it has adult themes, and the adult themes also include us not thinking of who and what we are any longer. Shai says, and can I shill for my anti-war benefit to support Russian draft dodgers who left home forever? Yes, of course you can. Of course, I wish you could. There's a way to drop a link. Anyway, yes, the answer to that is yes. Critical Hit. Hope you will release your sci-fi world someday before too long. Yes, as a matter of fact, let me drop this in. Bam, for support. I don't know much about it, about what it's like. Yes, yes, I said. So it's not a world for snowflakes. It's going to be like the Ring of Fire for sci-fi. Yes, yes. Let me here. Okay, here's an adult concept. All right. Um, if human beings could, okay, there's a concept of we are all the hero in our own story, but what's never said is we're the villain in everyone else's story. So if I hate to say this, YouTube, because I know YouTube's going to ping me on this. If I'm a pedophile and I and I fly off to a space habitat where there's other like-minded people, does that exist in this world? Yes. Does that mean they need throat punching? Yes. I understand everybody and their mom's going to want to nuke the place out of orbit. I get that. But that kind of stuff exists, and it probably exists in like virtual realities and things. There's a lot of other things, like for example, the plight of the quilt bag community, LGBT community. Just say pizza enthusiast for that P word. Pizza enthusiast. Yeah, yeah. So the plight of the LBGT community, the quilt bag community, right? The acronym community is one I personally have zero problem with it. It my bills don't change because how somebody else wants to live their life. I believe in freedom and the freedom to do whatever you want. I don't judge people on their tattoos, and you can put that do anything with your body if you want to alter your body, or you want to have a different lifestyle. I couldn't give a shit. But some people have a problem with that. In this sci-fi world, you have the choice to live how you want to live. You can live in a body that has the gender, the shape, the color, the racial features of anything that you want. And if you have enough influence and money, you can have multiples of these bodies. As a matter of fact, if we become digital beings, gender doesn't exist at all anymore. It becomes a choice, not a. It becomes a feature, not a thing you are born with. And so, on in a good sense, it's like wow, wow, this game world sounds like I'm very pro quilt bag, right? And personally, I am, but in the game world, it is that way, except for this other thing. There's also um, uh, there are people who like to visit. There are tourists who like to, on the side, go into a body that's different than theirs just to have some fun. Yeah, some decadent fun to do it on the side. So on one hand, there's freedoms, but on the other hand, there's people who are like against it. Also, remember, it's so easy for Earthlings to lead. Not easy, but we have our baggage. And despite the fact that I think I'm the hero of my own story, I'm sure I'm the villain in someone else's story. So if I leave Earth and go to a space habitat on a moon on Saturn and go, "Hey everybody, we should live like this," they're going to look at me like, like, who are you? You're bringing in your poisonous, mimetic, um, dangerous ideas into our place. And I'm looking at them like, you guys are behind the times or things like that. So Chai says, good, I'll become a woman so people will finally give a shit about my fucking no-name underground band. You're so bad. But yeah, you could front like that. You could be like, I am now a woman. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Right? Even if it's only temporary. Even if it's just the front the band and then behind the although I don't know, it might be fun to have groupies for that kind of thing. There was a superhero group called DV8 where there was a woman whose power was to transform into a male superhero, and she had lots of female groupies, and she was just like, get away from me, like stop, this is my superpower. I just look this way. I'm not. Anyway, it was pretty kind of fun. But yes, there is that possibility, and there's so many other things too, right? When it comes to technology, like biologically creating human slaves who have a mentality who is to serve and only be happy when they serve. Yeah, yep. L word groupie, surefire ticket to fame. Hells yeah. Stealing it. Pretty sick, but yes, yeah, there. Yes, the damage done with technology in this setting is going to be high. So there definitely be a big warning label on the side of it, and I kind of hope it draws attention when it's done, when it's all said and done. L word groupies. Wow, that's so hilarious, dude. That's hilarious. I'm sure between Deadman and I think we could come up with a ton of like, ooh, you wouldn't want to do that with technology because it's pretty dangerous and horrible. For example, there are viruses that kill people because of their genetic code, like people with freckles or people with blue eyes, or they're dumb stuff like that. There are because you have the ability to choose how you want to present yourself to the world. There's a lot of genetic and technological prejudice, because people would say, well, why would you want to choose to be in a body with lighter or darker skin, shorter or longer hair, a body that is, male, female, any combination of the gender fluidity? Why would you want to be in a body that has gender fluidity in the first place? Um, Combat and solving problems are going to be done exactly the same way. So so far the mechanism I'm going to use is it's just basically problems, uh, capital problems, solutions, and and no, I'm sorry, I'm using wrong terms. Um, there are problems and then there are solutions. How you solve it, whether it's through combat or not, is going to be the exact same way. I don't want there to be a difference between the two. So, in other words, like if you want to call it hit points, I hate using hit points and stuff, but if you want to have hit points, 5 hit points to solve a problem, it's possible that you could solve that problem by doing 5 points of damage to a person to kill them, or you could do you could reduce their 5 points to convince them to let you shut down the engines, or hand over the keys to let them use their starship, or intimidate them so that the new law that is passed that prevents the genetically disabled access onto Luna is overthrown, or something like that. So the problem solution mechanism, and that's why I haven't picked a game system. I want a problem solution mechanism that parallels combat and everything else, right? I don't want there to be a difference. So, yeah, Shai says, because I think dark settings can be scarier when it's low combat and every fight is really, really bad. Oh, being killed, lethality. There's going to be a high lethality because um, stealing this from Eclipse Phase and a bit of uh, Altered Carbon. Um, Death is easy. I'm sorry, being destroyed is easy. Death isn't. So if you have a zip in the back of your head, a stacked carbon thing that records your brain, your psychological mechanisms, basically your mental stats. Oh, your body can get blown away pretty easily. But if someone is able to take that and download it into another jacket, you can come back. But here's the thing: you could get shot, destroyed. Your zip could get stuck in an old spaceship, be left there for 5 weeks until a copy of you comes back for it, but your copy doesn't remember what event happened to cause you to be woken up to go back to go after you again, right? So yeah, cortical stacks. Yep. Um, so yeah, good idea. Frame combat like a problem you got to solve, because if you start shooting in space, you're gonna die. Yes, there are specific weapons that are completely illegal and dangerous to have in space because they can punch holes in starships. So there are like non lethal penetrating weapons that are used in starships and space and habitats. You don't want to start shooting. You don't want to start shooting projectiles in spaceships, even though people will do it. And yeah, you can use your cortical stacks to recreate yourself. And here's so I have a fundamental problem with death in role playing games. As much as death should be on the table because it should be a threat in role playing games, it's also pretty boring. You're either alive or you're dead, and that transition sucks. But what would be cool is PC goes into adventure, PC gets killed, back of their brain is captured by bad guy, PC gets reinstant from their zip drive, comes back to find out what happened to them and how they died, and now needs to go after old bad guy who defeated them the first time to get their kidnapped mind back from bad guy. And the faster they do it, the sooner they can get their old mind back, because who knows what their bad guy may do. maybe the bad guy doesn't know or doesn't have the opportunity to get your rotting body and that carbon tube out of the back of your neck, or they put you into a virtual world and they're torturing the hell out of you. They are deleting your brains and uncovering all kinds of secrets you've had. They re-instance you after editing your memories into another biological body, and you're existing somewhere else, right? So there is death, because really role-playing death is the inability to use your character again. So death in like Kids with Bikes or Tales from the Loop is your child character is suspended from school or moves away or something like that, or goes to juvie, right? um, Shy Size Squad says, yeah, death can be boring, but you can always have more characters lined up, like teams of investigators in Cthulhu, so you can keep right on going. Yeah, exactly. But with cortical stacks, you can still do the same thing if you want to. But yeah, it's the exact same thing, right? You have characters sitting in the background, which is weird that we don't. I find it weird in the role playing community that we don't have as a norm backup characters, right? It's always like a one off, and I'm thinking, well, if you want death on the table and your character dies, why are you upset? Right? Like, it's weird. Yeah. Marco says, yeah, death sucks, but some players hate the idea of losing progress to the point that they'd rather die and start over. Uh, yes. And that's a viable tactic in this science fiction setting that I have. The only problem with sacrificing yourself because you'd rather die than lose progress is that your progress, that death itself will limit your progress. So you could come back as a different character or your same character, but that means whoever you failed against, your progress keeps moving forward while you are recuperating or doing a different thing. So yeah, yeah, Shay Scott says, what you said is cooler, though. The cortical stacks and the memory problem, the film rip where you don't know what happened. Exactly. A player, like, for example, there's going to be options in a game where your player character wakes up and you don't know what happens. I'm actually going to push it towards that for people who don't know what the setting is about, that you just woke up and it's been 78 years. You remember old Earth. Oh, well, you woke up in this high sci-fi setting and you don't know what the hell's going on. Okay, keep going. Hey, someone killed you. Now you have to discover who did it, right? Detective work. There's a book called Voice of the Whirlwind, which is exactly like that. A guy wakes up and he's like, I've been dead for 15 years. What the hell? And all his he realizes that he doesn't have any memory of his social interactions with all of his allies. Some of them bad guys, some of them have changed, and things like that. Yeah. So um, the the idea that there is a interstitial moment of sorts, I'd like to play with. Yeah, I just woke up. The best kind of beginning eliminates all kinds of contrived setup scenarios. Yeah, and also it's a easy. I'm thinking of this mechanically, right? You have a new person that wants to join your group. This is the exact way you put them in there. You also have a player who's like, oh man, I won't be able to be part of this for 2 months, but can I come back into the game? Yes. Your character dies. Boom, blasted out in space. 2 months later, oh, someone found your cortical stack and picked it up. Or someone says, you know what? I know I'm playing this like biological person badass, but I actually want to change my character now. So I want to be like this. I want to have a mechanical body, but it's like a female body, all chrome like, and I've got like 4 arms now, and and I have this like these drones that sit on my shoulder, but they lift off my shoulders and they fly around and blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, it's the game's going to. What are your mental stats? Change your physical ones. Go ahead, pick something else. So I want that as well, because some people get bored with the same character, which might be a reason why some people want their character to die. Not Marco does bring up the good point about, like, some characters hate losing such progress that they're just like, fuck it, just kill my character off. But there are times where some players just have, I want to have a new character syndrome. and this will allow you to do that too. They found your cortical stack and uploaded you into a dog or a mantis shrimp. I'd rather take the mantis strip, mantis shrimp punching people at 60 miles an hour. I love that. Yeah. Oh man. But yes, that's going to be a possibility too. And here's the dark side of being able to do that. As a there are going to be provisions in the game for the game master and with the players acceptance to play a game where the dungeon master what kind of word am I using, the narrator, the storyteller, right? Damn. The game master will be able to say that your memories, you think you have your memories, but they aren't real. Or these are the memories of somebody else and you're just living their life. Or you think you've been alive for 37 years, but you've actually just woke up 6 months ago. You just don't remember having done that and things like that. And yeah, and then the Mantis Ship is actually a mech piloted by a squirrel. So you get two characters at once. Squirrel. Anyway, yeah. So, yes, anyway, we'll get into it. We'll get into character options and things like that, and how I'm mechanically going to include them, and maybe even talk about like the problem solution idea. Like, how do you, if combat is like every other thing, then how do you, okay, so I want the ability to be in a gunfight and have social interaction. So, gunfight, bad guys, each of the bad guys has 5 hit points. I'm not using hit points, but just use that as an example. Pew, 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 pew. And then screaming over the gunfire is just like, hey, I'll pay you X amount of credits or something if you just put your guns down. Or, hey, the person you've been working with is corrupt and blah, blah, blah. So during a gunfight, someone can actually fight with social interactions to solve the problem. And so I want there to be a problem solving, not let's devolve into physicality without doing the thing. So you could defeat the bad guys by convincing them that we shouldn't be fighting at all, using same numbers, same stats to achieve a different outcome. So yes, could you kill the bad guys? Yes. Could you have a gunfight and in the middle of the gunfight go, you've lost half your numbers, put your guns down, there's a way we can get out of this. And the bad guys go, okay, as long as, and you could come up with any kind of interaction. And does that mean the bad guys give up and does it solve? Yes, same thing. I shoot with love and fight against the villain who shoots bullets of hate. Yeah, I'm going to insert my love into you. Ooh, ooh. Maybe I shouldn't have said said it that way. Ew. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. Please, 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 follow Shy Squad online. I don't know why I haven't shouted you guys out. Let's do this. No, I don't mean that. Boom, boom, boom. I do mean this. Ba, ba, ba. If you're gonna go on the YouTubes, on the Googles, do a search. By the way, it asked me did I meant to search for Suicide Squad, which is kind of funny. But here we go: SoundCloud, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. I'm sorry, X, um, et cetera, et cetera. Please, please, please patronize the band, because you don't know what you're missing. So that's the first thing that came up, and I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Anyway, guys, have a great one. Thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Yeah, you. Oh, thank you. Yeah, use your neural interface to send text messages to the other side. Hell yeah. Yeah. Hey, wouldn't it be cool to be in a gunfight and then also be in a overlaid neural network a virtual space, which would be kind of weird. Uh, Hologram standing in the hallway trying to shake hands while bullets and laser beams fly back and forth. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, let me put this up here. Yeah. Oh, it says thanks for the shout out. Please consider a €7 contribution for Russian draft dodgers and get 72 tracks of electro industrial. That's sweet. That's cool. Anyway, God, I want to leave this up here so everyone else who gets out of here can see this. Thank you so much for being part of the show and letting. I didn't think I was going to go this long, but thank you very much for allowing me to mental vomit into the interwebs. Um, don't know what we're going to do next week, but we'll come up with something as well. Please, if you have any ideas for prompts, for ideas for the Day of series, please do that as well. And a side note, I've actually been dreaming about some other things, but we're going to leave this contribution up here for people who are dodging the draft overseas. Again, I'm pretty ignorant of a lot of these kind of things. I know surface level information, but for those who are going through such things, I wish everyone the best for making the best decisions for the improvement of lives for themselves and everybody around them. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Have a great weekend,